My son called, "Mom, Christmas is only for my wife's family this year. Don't come." I replied, "Perfect." He had no idea what I was about to do with $9 million. Before we continue, comment where you're watching from and subscribe to the channel. We'd love to see how far our stories are reaching. The call came on December 15th, exactly 10 days before Christmas. I was sitting in the sunroom of my house in Helena, Montana, holding one of Robert's old Christmas cards, the last one he ever wrote me 2 years ago, 3 weeks before the cancer took him. To my Nancy, it said, 40 years of Christmases, and every one better than the last. Here's to 40 more. All my love, Robert. We didn't get 40 more. We got 0. And now my son was telling me I couldn't spend Christmas with my only grandchild because his wife had decided I was too much. Brandon, I don't understand. Sophie's been asking about me. She called last week. Amber thinks it's better if we establish boundaries. Her family is coming and there's not enough room. Not enough room? You have a 6-bedroom house. Mom, please, don't make this harder than it has to be. In the background, I heard Amber laugh, not at something funny, at me. I'd learned to recognize that particular laugh over the 4 years since Brandon married her. Sharp, performative, meant to be overheard. Is Amber listening to this conversation? What? Of course not. Another lie. Brandon had become an expert liar since meeting Amber. Small lies at first. We can't make it to dinner, something came up. Then bigger ones. Amber's not feeling well. We'll visit next month. And now this. All right, Brandon. If that's what you want. It's not what I want. It's just, Amber says. I know what Amber says. I've been hearing what Amber says for 4 years. I kept my voice steady. Have a nice Christmas. I hung up before he could respond. For a long moment, I sat in the silence of my empty house. Robert's card was still in my hands, his handwriting blurring as tears filled my eyes. My phone buzzed. A text message. Finally learned your place, old woman. Brandon is mine now. Stay in your lane and maybe we'll let you see Sophie on her birthday. Maybe. I read the message 3 times. Then I screenshot it, saved it to my cloud, and put down the phone. Something shifted inside me, not sadness. I'd felt enough sadness to last a lifetime. This was different, colder, harder. Amber thought she'd won. She thought I was just a lonely widow who would accept whatever scraps she threw my way. She didn't know me at all. I pulled up Instagram and typed Amber's handle. Her feed was the usual curated fantasy. Perfect outfits, perfect meals, perfect family. But 3 posts down, something caught my eye. A photo of a ranch. Sprawling, magnificent, backed by snow-capped mountains. The caption read, "Our dream Christmas destination. This place is everything. Brandon and I are manifesting hard. Send good vibes. Big Sky, Montana. Dream Ranch. Manifesting our best life." The comments were full of heart emojis and, "You deserve it, Queen," from her influencer friends. I recognized the property, the Whitewater Ranch. 12,000 acres of pristine Montana wilderness, a 10-bedroom main house, private lake, and views that had been featured in architecture magazines. It had just come on the market for $9.2 million. I knew because my financial advisor had sent me the listing last week. "Might be a good investment," he'd written. "If you're looking for a legacy property," I'd ignored it then. I wasn't interested in ranches or legacy properties. I was interested in seeing my granddaughter, in rebuilding my relationship with my son, in salvaging what was left of my family. But now, staring at Amber's post, something clicked. She wanted this ranch. She wanted it desperately. You could see it in the way she'd written the caption, the hunger barely concealed beneath the hashtags. And she couldn't have it. Brandon was a regional sales manager making $85,000 a year. Amber's influencer career brought in maybe $30,000 in sponsorships, most of which she spent on maintaining the illusion. They couldn't afford $9 million. They couldn't afford $900,000. Robert had built Caldwell Energy from nothing, a small oil services company that grew into a regional powerhouse. When he sold it 5 years before he died, we'd walked away with $52 million after taxes, even after his medical bills, After the charitable donations he'd insisted on, after the trust funds for Brandon and Sophie, I still had over $40 million in various accounts. I'd never spent it. What was the point? Robert was gone. Brandon had Amber. Sophie was being raised to see me as an inconvenience. But now I had a use for that money. I called my financial advisor. James, that ranch property you sent me last week, is it still available? The Whitewater? Yes, I believe so. Are you interested? I want to buy it. Cash offer. No contingencies. I want it closed before Christmas. Silence on the line. Nancy, that's a significant purchase. Are you sure you want to move this quickly? I've never been more sure of anything. The asking price is $9.2 million. With a cash offer, we might be able to negotiate down to offer full asking, plus $100,000 bonus if they can close by December 23rd. Can you make it happen or not? Another pause. I can make some calls, but may I ask why the urgency? I looked at the screenshot of Amber's text on my phone. Stay in your lane, old woman. Let's just say I'm manifesting my best life. The sellers accepted within hours. An elderly couple from California who'd owned the ranch for 30 years and wanted to retire to Arizona. They were thrilled with the cash offer, thrilled with the timeline, thrilled to hand the keys to someone who clearly loved the property. I didn't tell them I'd never set foot on it. Over the next week, I became obsessed. I hired a property manager to prepare the house for Christmas. I ordered a tree, 12 feet, Norwegian spruce, delivered from a specialty farm in Oregon. I bought decorations, enough to fill every room. I hired caterers to stock the kitchen and housekeepers to make every surface gleam. And I commissioned a sign. The woodworker I found in Bozeman specialized in rustic ranch signage. He was a gruff man in his 60s, more comfortable with wood than words. What do you want it to say? He asked. He looked at me for a long moment. You sure about that? Lady, that's gonna cause some problems. The sign was ready on December 22nd. Hand-carved from reclaimed barnwood, letters burned deep into the grain. It read, Caldwell Legacy Ranch. Brandon's inheritance, revoked. I had it hung above the main fireplace, perfectly positioned to appear in any photo taken from the leather couch. On December 23rd, I moved into the ranch. It was everything Amber's Instagram post had promised and more. The main house was a masterpiece of timber and stone, with floor-to-ceiling windows that framed the mountains like living paintings. The fireplace in the great room was 10 feet wide, built from river rock that must have taken years to collect. I walked through every room, touching the walls, the furniture, the light fixtures. This was mine now, all of it. $9 million of dreams that Amber would never touch. That night, I sat by the fire and wrote a letter to Robert. My love, I began. I'm doing something you might not approve of. Something petty, something spiteful, something that goes against everything you taught me about grace and forgiveness. But I'm tired of being graceful. I'm tired of forgiving people who keep hurting me. I'm tired of being treated like I don't matter by the son we raised and the woman who's convinced him I'm his enemy. So tomorrow, I'm going to do something mean. And I'm going to enjoy it. I hope you understand. I hope wherever you are, you're shaking your head and smiling. Because we both know you married a fighter, even if it took me 62 years to remember it. I sealed the letter and put it in my jewelry box, next to Robert's wedding ring and the last Christmas card he ever wrote me. On December 24th, Christmas Eve, I put on my best cashmere sweater, the emerald green one Robert always said matched my eyes. I curled my hair. I applied makeup for the first time in months. Then I poured myself a glass of champagne, sat on the leather couch in front of the roaring fire, and held up my phone. The sign was perfectly visible above my head. Caldwell Legacy Ranch. Brandon's inheritance. Revoked. I smiled. Not a nice smile, but a genuine one. And took the photo. I posted it to Instagram with a simple caption. Merry Christmas from my new home. Dreams do come true. Big Sky, Montana. Caldwell Ranch. Living my best life. Then I turned off my phone, refilled my champagne, and watched the fire crackle. It took 37 minutes for the calls to start. My phone lit up like a Christmas tree itself. Brandon, Amber, Brandon again, an unknown number, Amber's mother, Brandon 5 more times. I watched the notifications pile up without answering. Then a text from Brandon. "Mom, what the hell?" And another. "Pick up your phone." And another. "This isn't funny." I screenshot each one. Then finally, from Amber. "You bought the ranch?" "That was our ranch. We were going to buy it. How dare you?" I typed back slowly, savoring every letter. "I thought Christmas was only for your family. I'm just staying in my lane. Enjoy the holidays." No response for a long moment. Then a photo came through, a zoomed-in screenshot of my Instagram post. The sign was perfectly clear, every letter sharp against the worn wood. "What does that sign mean?" Amber wrote. "Brandon's inheritance revoked? What the hell does that mean?" I smiled at my phone. "I guess you'll have to find out," I typed. "Merry Christmas, Amber." Then I turned off my phone for good, finished my champagne, and went to bed in the master suite of my new $9 million ranch. Outside, snow was beginning to fall. Inside, the fire crackled and popped. And somewhere in Billings, my son and his wife were finally learning what happens when you push someone too far. Tomorrow they would come. Tomorrow, there would be screaming and crying and accusations. But tonight was mine. Merry Christmas to me. Christmas morning came cold and silent. I woke at dawn in the master suite, momentarily disoriented by the unfamiliar ceiling, the massive windows framing mountains I'd only ever seen in photographs. Then I remembered. The ranch. The photo. The sign. I turned on my phone. 147 missed calls. 212 text messages. 17 voicemails. I scrolled through the texts without reading them in detail. Brandon's ranging from angry to pleading to threatening. Amber's escalating from outrage to profanity to what appeared to be a legal threat. Her mother had sent a long message about family values and respect for elders. Ironic, given her daughter had called me a dispensable old woman 10 days ago. But one message caught my eye, from a number I didn't recognize. "Mrs. Caldwell, this is Mariana Torres. I worked at Western Montana Bank until last month. I need to tell you something about your daughter-in-law. Please call me. It's urgent." I saved the number and kept scrolling. My phone buzzed with an incoming call. Brandon. I let it ring through. Then I called Mariana Torres. She answered on the second ring. "Mrs. Caldwell? Thank God. I wasn't sure you'd call. You said it was urgent. What's this about?" I'm not supposed to talk about this. Bank confidentiality and all. But what she tried to do? Mariana's voice dropped. "I couldn't sleep after I saw your post last night. That sign. Does your son know about the inheritance thing?" "Brandon knows he was set to inherit. He doesn't know I can change that." "That's what I thought." Mariana took a breath. "Mrs. Caldwell, about 8 months ago, your daughter-in-law came into our branch. She wanted access to your accounts." My stomach tightened. "What do you mean, access?" "She had documents, power of attorney paperwork, account authorization forms, all of it signed by you, or at least, that's what she claimed. I never signed any power of attorney for Amber." "I know, that's why I called you." Mariana paused. "I'd seen your signature on other documents, the ones you actually signed, and these were different. Close, but not quite right. I flagged it for my supervisor. He reviewed it and agreed, probable forgery. We denied her request and noted it in your file. She was furious, threatened to sue, threatened to have us fired, the whole thing. Why didn't anyone contact me?" "We tried, but the phone number on file had been changed. The mailing address, too. Someone updated your contact information 6 months before she came in. Changed everything to a P.O. box in Billings. Brandon and Amber lived in Billings. So you couldn't reach me? And then about a month later, your daughter-in-law came back with a different approach. She didn't ask for access to your accounts. She asked about..." Mariana hesitated. "She asked about the process for having someone declared mentally incapacitated. She wanted to know what documentation we'd need to transfer account control to a guardian. She had a draft petition with her. I only saw the first page, but Mrs. Caldwell, your name was on it, and a doctor's signature. Someone named Dr. Harrison. I don't have a doctor named Harrison. I didn't think so. The whole thing felt wrong. That's part of why I quit." Her voice hardened. "I grew up with a grandmother like you. Strong, independent, sharp as a tack. If someone had tried to take her money by claiming she was incompetent, she stopped. I'm sorry. I should have done more. I should have found a way to warn you. You're warning me now. That's what matters. There's one more thing. The petition I saw, it wasn't just your daughter-in-law's name on it. There was another signature, for the family member attesting to your declining mental state. I knew what she was going to say before she said it. It was your son's name, Brandon Caldwell. After I hung up with Mariana, I sat in the great room and stared at the sign above the fireplace. Brandon's inheritance, revoked. When I'd had it made, I'd meant it as a statement, a provocation. A way to show Amber that I wasn't the powerless old woman she thought I was. I hadn't known then just how far she'd already gone. A petition for incapacity, forged documents. My own son's signature on paperwork designed to take away my autonomy. Had Brandon known what he was signing? Was he a co-conspirator or another one of Amber's victims? I didn't know, but I was going to find out. I called my attorney, Catherine Wells. She was a specialist in estate law and asset protection. Robert had insisted I retain her after his diagnosis, just in case. Nancy, Merry Christmas. What's wrong? I need to see you. Today. Today is Christmas. I know. I'm sorry. But I just found out that my daughter-in-law tried to have me declared mentally incapacitated. She had my son sign the petition. Silence on the line. Then, I'll be at your house in 2 hours. Where are you? I'm at my new property, the Whitewater Ranch. You bought the Whitewater? Catherine laughed. A short, surprised sound. Nancy Caldwell, you are full of surprises. Text me the address. And don't talk to Brandon or Amber until I get there. While I waited for Catherine, I did something I should have done 4 years ago. I started researching Amber. Her social media was carefully curated, the perfect life of a perfect wife and mother, but social media wasn't the only record that existed. I searched court records in Montana, then expanded to neighboring states. Nothing under Amber Caldwell. But then I tried her maiden name, Amber Whitmore, and hit gold. A marriage license from 2016 in Nevada. Amber Whitmore to Daniel Prescott. She'd been married before. She'd never mentioned it. Neither had Brandon, which meant either he didn't know or he was keeping yet another secret. I searched Daniel Prescott and found a Facebook profile. Middle-aged man, decent-looking, based in Reno. His recent posts were unremarkable. Sports updates, photos of a dog, political memes. But his posts from 2017 told a different story. Finally free. The divorce is final. To everyone who warned me and I didn't listen, you were right. If someone seems too good to be true, they are. Lesson learned the hard way. Rebuilding my life after losing everything to someone I trusted. It's going to be a long road. I sent him a message. Mr. Prescott, my name is Nancy Caldwell. My son is married to your ex-wife, Amber. I need to know what happened. Please call me. Then I kept digging. The court records for the Prescott divorce were partially sealed, but what I could see was damning. Daniel had filed for divorce citing fraud and misrepresentation. Amber had counter-filed claiming abuse. The settlement was confidential, but a related civil case showed that Daniel had sued Amber for conversion of assets, legal speak for theft. She'd done this before. She'd found a man, married him, and drained him dry. And now she was doing it to my son. Catherine arrived at noon, navigating her Lexus up the snow-covered ranch road with the determination of a woman who'd grown up in Montana winters. She was 55, silver-haired, with the kind of quiet competence that came from 30 years of protecting wealthy clients from their worst instincts. "This is quite a statement," she said, looking at the sign above my fireplace. I didn't know the half of it when I had it made. I told her everything. The bank visit, the forged documents, the incapacity petition, the previous marriage, the sealed divorce records. Catherine took notes, her expression growing grimmer with each revelation. "The forged power of attorney is a felony," she said when I finished. "If we can prove she did it, that's 5 to 10 years in Montana. The incapacity petition is harder. She never actually filed it, so there's no criminal act yet." What about Brandon? His signature was on the petition. That depends on what he knew. If he thought he was signing something legitimate, If Amber lied to him about what it was, he might not have criminal exposure. Catherine set down her pen. But Nancy, I have to ask, what do you want here? What's the outcome you're hoping for? I thought about it. 24 hours ago, I'd wanted to hurt Amber, to show her that I wasn't powerless, that I could take away the thing she wanted most. But this was bigger than a ranch now. I want to protect my assets, I said. I want to make sure Amber can never touch my money or have me declared incapacitated. And I want to know if my son is her victim or her accomplice. And if he's her accomplice, then I have no son. Catherine nodded slowly. All right. First thing we do is secure everything. New passwords, new contact information, fraud alerts on all your accounts. We get the bank to provide copies of the forged documents. That's evidence. We hire a private investigator to dig deeper into Amber's past. I already found her first husband, Daniel Prescott, in Reno. Good. We'll want a formal statement from him. She looked at me. Nancy, once we start this process, there's no going back. If Brandon is involved, if he knew what Amber was doing, this will destroy your relationship permanently. My relationship is already destroyed. He chose Amber over his own mother. He signed papers to have me declared incompetent. We don't know if he knew what he was signing. Then it's time to find out. My phone buzzed. A text from Brandon. Mom, we're coming to the ranch. We need to talk. Please don't call the police. Do you want me to stay? She asked. This is something I need to do alone. I stood. But I want everything you said. The account protections, the fraud investigation, all of it, started today. I don't care that it's Christmas. It'll cost extra for holiday work. I have $9 million in real estate and $40 million in the bank. I think I can afford it. Catherine smiled grimly. That's exactly the attitude that's going to get you through this. She left just as the snow started falling again. I watched her taillights disappear down the drive, then went to the window and waited. An hour later, I saw headlights approaching, Brandon's SUV struggling slightly on the icy road. I poured myself a glass of wine, sat down on the leather couch beneath the sign, and waited for my son and his wife to walk through the door. The confrontation was coming, and this time I was ready for it. But what I wasn't ready for, what I couldn't have prepared for, was the small face pressed against the back window of Brandon's SUV as it pulled up to the house. Sophie. They'd brought my granddaughter, and suddenly everything became much more complicated. Sophie came through the door first. Grandma! She ran across the great room and threw herself into my arms. 7 years old, blonde curls bouncing, still wearing her Christmas pajamas under her winter coat. Mommy said we were coming to see the fancy ranch. Is this really your house now? I held her tight, breathing in the strawberry scent of her shampoo. This child, this precious innocent child, was the reason I'd bitten my tongue for 4 years. The reason I'd accepted Amber's cruelty, Brandon's distance, the slow erosion of my place in my son's life. It really is, sweetheart. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, Grandma. I missed you. She pulled back to look at me with Robert's eyes, the same warm brown, the same spark of mischief. Mommy said we couldn't see you because you were sick. But you don't look sick. I glanced at Brandon and Amber, who had stopped just inside the door. Brandon looked exhausted, his face pale and drawn. Amber looked like she was calculating, her eyes scanning the room, lingering on the furniture, the artwork, the obvious expense of everything. I'm not sick, Sophie, just old. You're not old, Sophie giggled. You're grandma old. That's different. Sophie, go play somewhere, Amber said sharply. The adults need to talk. But I just got here. The little girl's face fell. She looked at me, then at her mother, then back at me. Why don't you go explore the house? I said gently. There's a big Christmas tree in the living room. I think Santa might have left something under it for you. Sophie's eyes went wide. Really? I'd bought presents, a dozen of them, in case I got to see her. I'd wrapped them myself, written her name in gold marker, left them under the 12-foot spruce. She squealed and ran off. The moment she was out of sight, Amber's mask dropped. How dare you? She hissed. How dare you buy this ranch out from under us? We had a plan. We were going to rent it for Christmas. then make an offer in the spring. With what money? I asked mildly. Brandon makes $85,000 a year. You make 30 if you're lucky. This ranch sold for $9 million. We would have figured it out. We always do. By figuring it out, do you mean forging my signature on power of attorney documents? Because that's what Mariana Torres from Western Montana Bank told me this morning. Amber went still. Just for a second, a flicker of something in her eyes. Then her composure returned. I don't know what you're talking about. Really? Because she also mentioned a petition to have me declared mentally incapacitated. One that you brought into the bank. One with Brandon's signature on it. Brandon's head snapped toward me. What? Don't play innocent, Brandon. You signed documents to have your mother declared incompetent. Your wife was planning to become my guardian and take control of everything I own. That's not... Brandon looked at Amber. Amber, what is she talking about? She's lying, Amber said smoothly. She's paranoid. This is exactly what I warned you about. She's losing her mind, seeing conspiracies everywhere. I have bank records, Amber. I have a witness. I have copies of the documents you submitted with my forged signature. I stood slowly. Did you think I wouldn't find out? Did you think I was just some helpless old woman you could manipulate? Brandon, she's delusional. We need to call someone. I also know about Daniel Prescott. The name hit like a gunshot. Amber went pale. Who's Daniel Prescott? Brandon asked. Ask your wife. Or should I say, his ex-wife. Brandon stared at Amber. What is she talking about? Nothing. She's making things up. Nevada, 2016. Marriage license, then divorce in 2017. He sued you for conversion of assets. Theft, Brandon. He claimed you stole from him. I pulled out my phone and showed them the court records. Sound familiar? Brandon took the phone with shaking hands. He scrolled through the documents, his face growing whiter with each page. You were married before? It was a mistake. I was young. You told me you'd never been married. When we got engaged, I specifically asked, because I knew you'd react like this. It was a bad relationship. He was abusive. I did what I had to do to survive. The court records say you defrauded him of $200,000. Amber's composure cracked. He's lying. He was trying to destroy me in the divorce. Everything in those records is his word against mine. Then explain the bank documents, I said. Explain why you tried to access my accounts with forged signatures. Explain the incapacity petition with my son's name on it. Brandon didn't know what he was signing. I told him it was estate planning paperwork. She stopped. The words hung in the air. Brandon stared at her. You told me it was estate planning. That's not what 6 months ago, you handed me a stack of papers and said it was for Mom's estate planning. In case anything happened. His voice was flat. Dead. What did I actually sign? Amber's eyes darted around the room, looking for an escape, an angle, a way to spin this. But there was nowhere to go. It was a petition, she said finally, to declare your mother incompetent, to give us control of her assets. You and me, as her guardians. Brandon, think about it. She's 62, she's alone, she's making irrational decisions. She just spent $9 million on a ranch to spite us. That's not the behavior of someone who... She's not incompetent. She's angry. Because you've been treating her like garbage for 4 years. I've been protecting this family. From what? From my mother? From the woman who raised me? Who paid for my college? Who's never asked for anything except to be part of our lives? Brandon's voice was rising now. What have you been protecting us from, Amber? From her control. From her money always hanging over us. From feeling like we owe her something. We do owe her something. She's my mother. Sophie appeared in the doorway, clutching a wrapped present to her chest. Why is everyone yelling? The room went silent. Go back to the tree, honey, Amber said, her voice strained. We're just talking. It doesn't sound like talking. It sounds like fighting. Sophie's eyes were wet. Are you fighting because of me? I crossed the room and knelt in front of her. No, sweetheart. We're not fighting because of you. You are the best thing in this whole house. Then why is Mommy so mad? Because Grandma and Mommy disagree about some things. That's all. It's not your fault. And it's not about you. Sophie looked at me with those Robert eyes. Trusting, uncertain, Can I stay with you, Grandma? I don't like it when they fight. Of course you can. Amber stepped forward. Sophie, come here. I want to stay with Grandma. Sophie, I said come here. Let her stay, Brandon said quietly. Mom, can you take her somewhere? We need to talk privately. I looked at Amber, then at Brandon. Something had shifted in my son's face. Something I hadn't seen in years. Clarity. Recognition. Like a man waking from a long, terrible dream. There's a game room upstairs, I said, with a pool table and some old board games. Sophie, would you like to see it? I took my granddaughter's hand and led her toward the stairs. As we climbed, I heard Amber's voice behind us, pleading now, the sharp edges gone. Brandon, please, I can explain everything. Just give me a chance. You've had 4 years of chances, Brandon said. I think it's time you started telling the truth. I settled Sophie in the game room with a puzzle and a cup of hot chocolate. The house was well insulated. I could barely hear the conversation below. But I didn't need to hear the words. I knew what was happening. Brandon was finally seeing his wife for what she was. The question was whether it was too late. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mrs. Caldwell, this is Daniel Prescott. I got your message. I'll tell you everything about Amber. She destroyed my life. I don't want her to destroy yours. I typed back. Thank you. Can you talk tomorrow? Yes. And Mrs. Caldwell? Be careful. When Amber feels cornered, she gets dangerous. I have the scars to prove it. I looked down the stairs, where my son was confronting the woman he thought he knew. Then I looked at Sophie, carefully fitting puzzle pieces together, unaware that her whole world was about to change. Robert used to say that the truth always comes out eventually. You can bury it, you can ignore it, you can build an entire life on top of it, but eventually, it surfaces. The truth about Amber was surfacing now, and none of us were ready for what it would reveal. The call with Daniel Prescott lasted 3 hours. He told me everything, how he'd met Amber at a charity event in Reno. Beautiful, charming, hanging on his every word. How she'd moved in within 3 months, married him within 6, how the financial problems started almost immediately, credit cards maxed out, loans taken in his name, investments liquidated without his knowledge. By the time I figured out what was happening, she'd taken almost everything, Daniel said. His voice was heavy with old pain. $200,000, my retirement savings, the equity from my house. How did she do it? She had me sign things. Always when I was tired, or distracted, or after we'd had a few drinks. Just estate planning, honey. Just updating our insurance. Just streamlining our accounts. He laughed bitterly. I was so in love with her, I didn't read a single document. By the time I realized what I'd signed, she was already moving money. What happened when you confronted her? She denied everything at first. Then when I showed her the proof, she turned it around on me. Said I was controlling, abusive, trying to gaslight her. She filed for divorce before I could, claimed domestic violence to get a restraining order. I couldn't even enter my own house to get my documents. The court records show you sued her for conversion of assets. I did, and I won, technically. The judge ruled she had to repay what she took, but she never paid a dime. By the time the judgment was final, she'd disappeared. Changed her name, moved to a different state. I spent 2 years looking for her. Eventually, about a year ago, I saw a photo on Instagram, some influencer's grateful wife post. And there she was. Amber Whitmore, now Amber Caldwell. Married to a new man, living in Montana, posting about her perfect life. His voice hardened. I almost reached out to warn him. Your son, I mean. But I figured, who'd believe me? The bitter ex-husband, making accusations? She's very good at making herself the victim. Mrs. Caldwell, I need to tell you something else. Something I didn't include in my message. When I was married to Amber, she talked about her future plans, what she wanted, where she wanted to be. She said she was tired of small money. She wanted real wealth. Generational wealth, she called it. He paused. She mentioned inheritance specifically. Said the real money in America isn't earned, it's inherited. Said she wanted to find someone with a dying parent or an elderly relative. Someone who was about to come into real money. The words hit me like ice water. When did she marry your son? Daniel asked. 4 years ago. About a year after she left Reno. And your husband? When did he pass? But he was sick before that? Yes, cancer. He was diagnosed 5 years ago. So Amber met your son and married him while your husband was dying. Daniel's voice was flat. She wasn't marrying Brandon, Mrs. Caldwell. She was marrying his inheritance. She was marrying you. After the call, I sat alone in the great room, staring at the fire. The house was silent. Brandon had taken Amber back to Billings hours ago, after a confrontation that ended with her in tears, and him white-faced and quiet. Sophie had fallen asleep in the game room. I'd carried her to one of the bedrooms and tucked her in. Brandon had asked if Sophie could stay with me for a few days. I need to think, he'd said. I need to figure out what's true and what's lies, and I can't do that with Amber in my ear. I'd agreed. Of course I'd agreed. Having Sophie here was everything I'd wanted for years. But now, sitting in the firelight, I couldn't feel any joy, only a cold, hard clarity. Amber had targeted my family. She'd found Robert's name in some business publication, researched our finances, identified Brandon as her way in. The chance meeting at a conference in Denver, the whirlwind romance, the quick engagement, none of it was real. She'd been running a long con from the beginning, and we'd all been too blind to see it. The question was, what now? I pulled out the documents Catherine had sent me that afternoon, account alerts showing that someone had tried to access my investment portfolio twice in the past month, blocked both times by the new security measures, credit reports showing unauthorized inquiries, and, most damning of all, the copy of Robert's will that my attorney had finally located. Robert had known. Or at least he'd suspected. The will was dense with legal language, but the key provisions were clear. Robert had left everything to me, the money, the properties, the investments, but there was a clause I'd never paid attention to before, buried on page 12. In the event of my wife's incapacity, mental or physical, all assets shall be held in trust and managed by the law firm of Wells and Associates. No family member shall have guardianship or financial control over my wife's estate. This provision is irrevocable. He'd protected me. Even from beyond the grave, Robert had built a wall around me that Amber couldn't breach. But that wasn't all. The inheritance provision for Brandon came with conditions too. My son Brandon shall inherit his portion of the estate only upon my wife's death, or upon her explicit written instruction. This inheritance is contingent upon my wife's sole discretion and may be revoked at any time for any reason. Brandon's inheritance wasn't guaranteed. It never had been. Robert had given me complete control, not because he didn't love our son, but because he'd seen something in Amber that made him cautious. I thought about what Daniel had said. She wasn't marrying Brandon. She was marrying his inheritance. Amber had miscalculated. She'd thought that once Robert died, the money would flow to Brandon automatically. She'd thought she could control Brandon, and through him, the estate. She hadn't counted on Robert's paranoia, or his foresight. The incapacity petition made sense now. If she couldn't get the money through Brandon, she'd get it by having me declared incompetent. As my guardian, she'd have access to everything. The forged power of attorney had been her first attempt. The incapacity petition was her backup plan. Both had failed. And now she was cornered. My phone buzzed. A text from Brandon. Mom, I need to see the petition. The one with my signature. I need to know what I actually signed. I photographed the documents Catherine had obtained and sent them over. 10 minutes later, Brandon called. Mom, his voice was ragged. I didn't know. I swear to you, I didn't know what this was. She told me it was estate planning. She said you'd asked for it, that you wanted everything organized. How can you? I signed papers to have you declared incompetent. I helped her. You were manipulated, Brandon. That's what she does. That's what she's always done. I should have read them. I should have called you. I should have... His voice broke. Mom, I'm so sorry. For everything. For the past 4 years. For cutting you out. For believing her. For... We don't have time for apologies right now. Amber is dangerous. She's done this before and she's going to do it again. Either to us or to someone else. We need to stop her. I'm meeting with Catherine tomorrow. She's working with the bank to document the forgery charges. She's also in touch with law enforcement in Nevada. Apparently, the statute of limitations hasn't run on what she did to Daniel Prescott. You talked to her ex-husband? For 3 hours. Brandon? She married him for his money too. She ran the same playbook, moved fast, isolated him from family, got him to sign documents he didn't read. The only difference is he didn't have as much to take. Brandon was quiet for a long moment. I thought I was special. I thought she loved me because I was different from her ex. She told me he was abusive, that she'd escaped a terrible situation. She tells everyone that. It's how she becomes the victim. First, you don't go home. Not tonight. Not until we have a plan. Do you have somewhere to stay? I'm at a hotel in Billings. I told Amber I needed space to think. Good. Tomorrow, I want you to come here. Bring whatever financial documents you have access to. Tax returns, bank statements, anything that shows where your money has been going. You think she's been taking from us too? I think we need to check. Mom, Brandon hesitated. Thank you for not giving up on me, for fighting even when I pushed you away. You're my son. Fighting for you is what I do. I love you too. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow is going to be a long day. I hung up and sat in the firelight, watching the embers glow. The sign above my head still read, Caldwell Legacy Ranch. Brandon's inheritance revoked. Tomorrow, I would have it taken down. The message had been delivered. Now it was time for the real work. Amber had spent 4 years trying to steal my family's future. She'd almost succeeded, but she'd made one fatal mistake. She'd underestimated me. She'd seen an elderly widow, alone and grieving, and assumed I was weak. She didn't know that I'd built a company from nothing, survived my husband's cancer diagnosis, and learned to navigate a world that constantly underestimated women like me. She didn't know that Robert had taught me to fight. And she didn't know that when you threaten a mother's child, even a grown child who's made terrible mistakes, you awaken something ancient and fierce. Amber had woken that something, and now she was going to pay. Brandon arrived at the ranch the next morning with a box of documents and a face aged 10 years overnight. I found something, he said, setting the box on the kitchen table. I stayed up all night going through our finances. Every account, every statement, every credit card bill. He pulled out a stack of papers, bank statements, highlighted in yellow and pink. In the past 2 years, Amber has moved $340,000 out of our accounts. She told me it was going to investments, to her business, to opportunities I didn't need to worry about. His voice cracked. It's gone, Mom. All of it. The money you gave us for the house down payment. The savings for Sophie's college. Gone. I looked at the statements. Transfers to accounts I didn't recognize. Checks made out to cash. Wire transfers to offshore banks. I don't know yet, but there's more. He pulled out another document. A credit report. She's been opening accounts in my name for years. Credit cards I never applied for. A home equity line I never signed. My credit score was 780 when we got married. Now it's 520. She's destroyed you financially. Yes. Brandon sat down heavily. And the worst part is, I let her. Every time she asked me to sign something, every time she said, don't worry about the details, I just trusted her. Because she was my wife. Because I loved her. You're not the first person she's fooled, Brandon. That doesn't make me feel better. Sophie came running into the kitchen then, still in her pajamas, face bright with morning energy. Daddy, you came! Are we having breakfast with Grandma? Brandon pulled her into his arms. We are, sweetheart. We're going to have a nice breakfast and then maybe go look at the horses. There are horses here? The ranch has stables, I said. Would you like to see them? Yes, yes, yes. Sophie bounced on her feet. Can we ride them? Can I have one? We'll see. First, breakfast. I made pancakes while Brandon helped Sophie with her plate. For a few minutes, watching them together, I could almost forget why we were here. Almost pretend this was just a normal family breakfast. Grandmother and son and granddaughter sharing a meal. Then my phone rang. Catherine. Nancy, we have a problem. Amber filed something this morning. An emergency petition for divorce. And she's claiming domestic abuse. I stepped into the hallway, away from Sophie. She's claiming Brandon abused her? It gets worse. She's also filed for emergency custody of Sophie. She's alleging that Brandon is mentally unstable and that your influence is dangerous to the child. She's asking the court to prevent you from having any contact with your granddaughter. I felt the blood drain from my face. Can she do that? She can file anything she wants. Whether she wins is another matter. But Nancy, she's scheduled a hearing for tomorrow morning. She found a judge who'll hear emergency motions during the holiday week. We need to be there. What about the fraud charges? The forgery? Still being processed. Bank investigations take time, and law enforcement won't move until they have a complete file. Right now, it's her word against ours, and she's very good at playing the victim. I thought about Daniel Prescott's warning. When Amber feels cornered, she gets dangerous. We'll be there. What time? 9 a.m., Yellowstone County Courthouse. I hung up and went back to the kitchen. Brandon was watching Sophie eat her pancakes, a look of fierce love on his face. That was Catherine. Amber filed for divorce. Brandon nodded slowly. I expected that. She's also claiming domestic abuse, and she wants emergency custody of Sophie. His face went white. What? She filed an emergency motion. Hearings tomorrow at 9. But I would never. Brandon's hands were shaking. She's lying. She's always been the one who. He stopped, glancing at Sophie. We need to talk. Not here. We left Sophie with the property manager, a kind woman named Elena who'd been managing the ranch for years, and walked out to the stables. The horses were calm, steaming breath in the cold air, unaware of the human drama unfolding around them. She's using the playbook, I said. The same one she used on Daniel. Make herself the victim, accuse you of abuse, try to take everything in the divorce. But Sophie. She can't take Sophie. She can try. Brandon, I need you to tell me everything. Every fight you've ever had. Every time things got physical. Every incident she could twist. Brandon was quiet for a long moment. Things never got physical. I never hit her. Never even raised my hand. But, he hesitated. She hit me. A few times. When she was angry about money. Or when I questioned her spending. She said it didn't count because she was smaller than me. His jaw tightened. I never told anyone. I was ashamed. Did anyone ever see it happen? Did you ever document it? I thought it was my fault. That I'd done something to deserve it. You didn't deserve it. No one deserves that. I know. I'm starting to know. He looked at the horses. Mom, what if she wins? What if she takes Sophie and I never see my daughter again? She's not going to win. We have evidence. The forgery, the fraud, her pattern of behavior with Daniel. We have Catherine, who's one of the best attorneys in the state. And we have the truth. The truth doesn't always win, but we're going to make sure it does this time. That afternoon, Amber arrived at the ranch. She drove up the long driveway in her white Mercedes, the one I later learned was leased, 3 months behind on payments. She got out slowly, deliberately, like an actress making an entrance. I'm here for my daughter, she said. Brandon stepped in front of the door. Sophie's staying with my mother. I'm her mother. I have rights. You filed for emergency custody claiming I'm dangerous. You can't show up here demanding anything. Amber's mask slipped, just for a second, a flash of fury, then smoothed back into wounded innocence. Brandon, please. I only filed those papers because I was scared. You've been so erratic lately, so angry. I didn't know what you might do. I've been angry because I found out you've been stealing from me for 4 years. That's not true. I would never... $340,000, Amber. I have the bank statements. I have the transfers. I know exactly where the money went. Amber's composure cracked further. I was investing. For our future. In what? Offshore accounts? Cash withdrawals? There's nothing left, Amber. You took everything. You're paranoid. Just like your mother. Her eyes flicked to me. This is her doing. She's poisoned you against me. You poisoned yourself. The forged documents, the incapacity petition, the lies. Brandon shook his head. I talked to Daniel Prescott yesterday, your ex-husband. The one you told me was abusive. Amber went very still. He told me everything. How you married him for his money. How you drained his accounts and then accused him of abuse to cover your escape. How you've done this before. Brandon's voice was steady now, cold, controlled. I'm not Daniel, Amber. I'm not going to let you destroy me and disappear. I don't know what lies he told you. He has court records. He has evidence. And so do we. Amber looked from Brandon to me and back again. I watched something shift behind her eyes. The calculation, the weighing of options. Fine, she said softly. You want to do this the hard way? We'll do it the hard way. She smiled. That cold, sharp smile I'd seen so many times. I'll see you in court tomorrow. And Brandon, when I'm done, you won't have your daughter, your money, or your reputation. I'm going to burn your entire life to the ground. Try it, I said, stepping forward. Try it and see what happens. Amber turned to me. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Two women who finally understood exactly who the other was. You think you're so smart, she said. Buying this ranch, making your little statement. But you're just a rich old woman playing games you don't understand. I've been doing this for 10 years. I've never lost. There's a first time for everything. Her smile didn't waver. We'll see. She got back in her Mercedes and drove away. Brandon and I watched until her taillights disappeared down the mountain. She's not going to stop, Brandon said quietly. I thought about Robert's will, about Catherine's strategy, about the evidence we'd gathered and the allies we'd found. We fight, I said. We fight, and we win, and we make sure she never does this to anyone else again. I looked at my son, my only child, the boy I'd raised, the man who'd finally seen the truth. We're not going to lose. Not this time. I put my arm around him, and together we walked back toward the house where Sophie was waiting. Tomorrow would be war, but tonight we were together, and that was enough. The courtroom was cold, all dark wood and fluorescent lights. Brandon sat beside me at the defendant's table, his face pale but composed. Catherine was arranging documents, her movements calm and efficient. Across the aisle, Amber sat with her attorney, a slick man in a too-shiny suit who'd made his name representing wealthy women in high-asset divorces. She looked perfect, of course. Hair softly curled, makeup subtle, wearing a cream cashmere sweater that screamed, "Innocent victim." She didn't look at us. That was deliberate. Judge Morrison entered at exactly 9 o'clock. She was a stern woman in her 60s, known for her no-nonsense approach to family court. This is an emergency hearing regarding custody of the minor child, Sophie Caldwell, the judge began. Mrs. Caldwell has filed for emergency sole custody, alleging domestic abuse and mental instability on the part of Mr. Caldwell. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor, Amber's attorney said smoothly. My client fears for her safety and the safety of her daughter. Caldwell has exhibited increasingly erratic behavior. Your Honor, if I may, Catherine interrupted. Before we proceed, I'd like to submit evidence that directly contradicts Mrs. Caldwell's allegations and suggests that this petition is part of a pattern of fraudulent behavior. What kind of evidence? Financial records showing that Mrs. Caldwell has embezzled over $340,000 from the marital accounts. Documents proving that she attempted to forge the petitioner's mother's signature on power of attorney documents. A petition she prepared to have Mrs. Nancy Caldwell declared mentally incompetent. A petition she tricked my client into signing by telling him it was estate planning paperwork. The judge's eyebrows rose. That's a serious allegation. We have documentation from Western Montana Bank, including witness statements from former employees. We also have testimony from Mrs. Caldwell's first husband, Daniel Prescott, showing that she employed identical tactics during their marriage 7 years ago. Objection? Amber's attorney was on his feet. This is character assassination. My client's previous marriage has no bearing. It goes to pattern of behavior, Your Honor. Caldwell has a documented history of marrying men, depleting their assets, and then filing false abuse claims when they discover the fraud. Judge Morrison looked at Amber. Mrs. Caldwell, is it true that you were previously married? Amber's composure flickered. That was a long time ago, Your Honor. My ex-husband was abusive. Your ex-husband has provided a sworn statement to the contrary. He's also provided court documents showing that you were ordered to repay $200,000 in assets you unlawfully converted. Those charges were exaggerated. Did you or did you not attempt to access Nancy Caldwell's bank accounts using forged power of attorney documents? Amber looked at her attorney. He leaned over, whispered something. I'd like to invoke my Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. The courtroom went very quiet. Your Honor, Catherine said, if Mrs. Caldwell is refusing to answer questions about financial fraud on Fifth Amendment grounds, I would suggest that speaks volumes about the credibility of her other allegations. Judge Morrison nodded slowly. I'm inclined to agree. Caldwell, I have some questions for you. Brandon straightened. Yes, Your Honor. Your wife alleges that you've been physically abusive. Is that true? No, Your Honor. I have never struck my wife. I have never threatened her with violence. Has she ever been physically violent with you? Brandon hesitated. I saw his jaw tighten. Yes, Your Honor. Several times over our marriage. I never reported it because... He stopped. Because I was ashamed. And because I thought it was my fault. Do you have any documentation of these incidents? No, Your Honor. But my wife has a history of projecting her own behavior onto her victims. Her ex-husband experienced the same thing. Judge Morrison turned to Amber. Mrs. Caldwell, given the evidence presented today, the documented fraud, the pattern of behavior, your refusal to answer questions about financial crimes, I'm denying your emergency custody petition. Your Honor, Amber's attorney started. I'm not finished. I'm also granting Mr. Caldwell temporary sole custody of the minor child pending a full hearing. And I'm ordering Mrs. Caldwell to have no contact with her daughter or her mother-in-law until that hearing takes place. You can't do this. Amber was on her feet now, the mask completely gone. She's my daughter. He's the one who... Mrs. Caldwell, sit down. This is a setup. They're all lying. His mother bought the judge, just like she bought everything else. Mrs. Caldwell, if you don't sit down and be quiet, I will hold you in contempt. Amber's attorney grabbed her arm, forced her back into her seat. She was crying now, or performing crying, it was hard to tell. Given the serious allegations of fraud, Judge Morrison continued, I'm also referring this case to the district attorney's office for potential criminal prosecution. Caldwell, I'd advise you to retain criminal defense counsel. She banged her gavel. Court is adjourned. Summer had come to the ranch, painting the mountains green and filling the meadows with wildflowers. Sophie ran across the lawn chasing butterflies, her laughter carrying on the warm breeze. I sat on the porch with Brandon, watching her play. He looked different now, healthier, younger somehow, like the weight of the past 4 years had finally been lifted. The prosecutor called today, he said. They're offering Amber a plea deal. 5 years for fraud and forgery, 3 years probation. Her attorney says yes. If she goes to trial, she's looking at 15 to 20. The evidence is overwhelming. I nodded. Catherine had been thorough, documenting every forged signature, every stolen dollar, every lie Amber had told. Combined with Daniel Prescott's testimony and the records from Nevada, the case against her was airtight. And the custody arrangement? The judge made it permanent last week. I have sole custody. Amber gets supervised visitation twice a month, if she wants it. Brandon shook his head. She hasn't asked to see Sophie once since the hearing. Not once. I thought about that. A mother who would fight so hard for custody, only to abandon her child the moment she realized there was no financial benefit. Sophie asked about her yesterday, Brandon said. Asked when Mommy was coming home. What did you tell her? The truth. That Mommy made some bad choices, and she has to deal with the consequences. That it's not Sophie's fault, and it's not about her. He watched his daughter leap after a butterfly. She's resilient. Kids are. She'll be okay. She has you. She has me. She'll be better than okay. Brandon reached over and took my hand. Mom, I never thanked you. For fighting for me when I didn't deserve it. For buying this ranch, making that statement. It was crazy, but it broke something open. It made me see. Sometimes people need a shock to wake up. I was so far under her spell. She had me convinced that you were the problem, that everyone who questioned her was jealous or crazy. I said terrible things to you. I did terrible things. You were manipulated by an expert. It happens to smart people all the time. That doesn't make it okay. but you're making it okay now. Every day you show up for Sophie. Every day you choose to be the father she needs. That's how you make it right. Sophie came running over, face flushed, a dandelion clutched in her fist. Grandma! I found you a flower. I took the dandelion and tucked it behind my ear. It's beautiful. Thank you, sweetheart. Can we go see the horses now? You promised we could ride today. We did promise. I stood, offering my hand. Brandon? Are you coming? We walked together toward the stables. Grandmother, father, and child. The mountains rose around us, ancient and permanent. The sign above the gate had been replaced months ago. The new one read simply, Caldwell Family Ranch, EST 2024. I'd had Robert's memorial plaque installed beneath it, a simple bronze marker that said, For Robert, who taught us to fight, and for Sophie, who made it worth fighting for. That evening, after Sophie was in bed, I sat in the great room and wrote another letter to Robert. My love, I began. A year ago I was alone. Our son was lost to me. Our granddaughter was being raised to see me as an enemy, and I'd almost given up. But you'd prepared me for this, hadn't you? All those years of building the business together, all those conversations about protecting what matters, you were teaching me to fight. Even after you were gone, you were still protecting me. The will, the provisions, the trust structure. You saw what I couldn't see, and you built walls around me that no one could breach. I bought a ranch to make a point. $9 million for a moment of petty revenge. You would have laughed at me, I think. That mixture of pride and exasperation you always got when I did something impulsive. But it worked. It broke through the fog that Amber had created. It brought our son back to us. Brandon and Sophie live here now. The house is full of noise and laughter and the kind of chaos that comes with a 7-year-old. It's exhausting. It's wonderful. It's everything I wanted and didn't know how to ask for. Amber is going to prison. The woman who tried to steal our family's future, who manipulated our son, who would have taken everything if we'd let her. She's going to spend years paying for what she did. Not just to us, but to Daniel, and probably to others we'll never know about. Justice exists. It's slow and imperfect, but it exists. I miss you every day. I talk to your picture in the morning and your stars at night. Sometimes I think I hear your voice in the way Brandon laughs, or see your eyes looking back at me from Sophie's face. You're gone, but you're not gone. You're in every piece of this ranch, every document that protected me, every moment of strength I found when I needed it most. Thank you, my love, for 40 years, for everything. Until we meet again, your Nancy. I sealed the letter and added it to the box where I kept all the others, a collection of conversations with a man who would never answer, but who was listening anyway. Then I turned off the lights and walked to the window. Outside, the Montana sky was blazing with stars, more stars than you could ever see in the city, more than seemed possible. Robert used to say that's why he loved it here. Room to breathe, he'd call it, room to think. I pressed my hand against the cool glass and looked out at the mountains, at the ranch, at the life I'd built from the ashes of the one that almost burned. Sophie's window glowed faintly down the hall. Brandon's truck was parked in the drive. Tomorrow, we'd have breakfast together, ride horses, maybe drive into town for ice cream. Tomorrow, we'd be a family. And that, more than the ranch, more than the money, more than the justice, was worth every moment of the fight. I went to bed with Robert's last Christmas card on my nightstand. Here's to 40 more, he'd written. We didn't get 40 more years together, but we got this. A legacy, a family, a future. I smiled and closed my eyes, and slept without dreaming.